No more watching cornhole on TV in the summer. It's time for football.
Listen, after watching a bunch of preseason games that don't mean anything with third-string guys playing, it's nice to have some games this weekend that mean something, that count.
Absolutely. 2016, the smell of roses. 2017, a party at the Fiesta. Where does the 2018 Penn State season conclude? We have no idea, but we do know the Blue-White Tailgate starts right now.
Great to have you with us. Another season of the Blue-White Tailgate. Steve Jones, Jay Paterno, Todd Sadowski. Great to have the family back together again. We're going to take a look at the offense, defense, Appalachian State, make our picks as well. It'll be a lot of fun. And our producer, John Stroh, wanted us to use the words lid lifter. Okay, so let's get to it here. In the lid lifters you've been a part of.
Since we're lifting the lid on the season, John, I think the thing about football is you play 12 games, 13 or 14 if you're really lucky.
Yeah.
So you spend 350 days a year getting ready for these moments. And at this point, you're tired of hitting your teammates. You're tired of looking at the same people. You want to get out in front of some people and play. So, yeah, the juices are really flowing.
Yeah, absolutely, especially coming off these kind of seasons, guys. Back-to-back 11-win seasons. And just the excitement level. I mean, have you seen the home schedule also? I mean, oh, my, unbelievable. Ohio State. We got Michigan State. You got Iowa, Wisconsin, all coming to Happy Valley. A more experienced offensive line. Simply cannot wait for things to get rolling.
If they run the home schedule, if they run the table in the home schedule, they're going to be playing in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it starts with the home opener. And by the way, Penn State has done very well in openers over the years. You can see very, very well. But what's the concern leading to an opener, Jay, if you're a staff?
Well, you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, you have young guys playing for the first time, and a friend of mine used to raise beagles, said you can raise these great beagles. You take them out to chase rabbits, and the gun goes off, they may be behind you, not chasing the rabbits. So will they chase the rabbits on Saturday? We'll find out.
Do you handle the team differently with expectations?
Well, I think the thing about it is that they've got to realize that, whether you're ranked 10 or 1 or whatever, doesn't matter. Appalachian State doesn't care. They're going to come in and play you.
Well, right now, James Franklin feels that through a month, everything's okay.
And I've been very impressed. I think our culture is really strong right now. I think our chemistry is really strong. I think our leadership is different, in terms of we don't have a huge senior class and those types of things. But, I like where we're at. I really do. And you see that in the weight room. You see that in the locker room.
Head coach James Franklin. All right, that brings us to our PSECU update desk and the newest member of our team.
Hi, I'm Josh Sperber, and this is the Update Desk, sponsored by PSECU. While a Sun Belt Conference team may seem overmatched heading into Happy Valley, the Appalachian State Mountaineers are a team with a lot of experience in big venues playing against top teams. Since 2005, their record against Power 5 schools is just 1-13, but Appalachian State has proven that they've been able to contend against some of the best teams in the country. In 2007, the Mountaineers went into the Big House and walked out with a 34-32 defeat over the Michigan Wolverines, a game that is still considered one of the biggest upsets in college football history. Since then, Appalachian State has lost every game they've played against Power 5 opponents, but they've been able to contend against a lot of those schools. Just last season, the Mountaineers played at home against Wake Forest and lost by just 1 point against a Demon Deacon team that finished 8-5 in the ACC. A year before that, Appalachian State was leading for most of the game against a Tennessee team that finished 9-4 in the SEC. The Volunteers may have won that game by 1 score in overtime, but the Mountaineers were in it from the start to the finish. While they may come into this game on Saturday as 24-point underdogs, the Appalachian State Mountaineers are not a team to be taken lightly, and Coach Franklin knows that.
This team is going to come into this stadium expecting to win. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think they've earned that right. I really do.
This is clearly a Mountaineer team that won't go down easily, and it should make for an interesting season opener. Guys, back to you.
Thanks so much, Josh. Welcome to the team, by the way. It's great to have Josh on board. All right, guys, so Appalachian State, they're interesting in a lot of ways. It's not 2007, all right? Okay, that's all right, but still, I mean, they've had success.
Well, they've had success, and these are the games that when your AD schedules them, the AD thinks they're great, they got the game, they got a home game, and as a coach, you're going great, because if we don't win by 50, everybody thinks there's something wrong with us, and if you get, God forbid, you get beat by one of them, then you're really in trouble.
Right, and that, look, it happened at the Big House, right? I know you mentioned that, but you look at their schedule, this is the big one for the Mountaineers. You can do whatever you want in this game. You are not expected to win this game. You go to Happy Valley, you're there, you enjoy the atmosphere, but you're there to do whatever you have to do. And for the home team's perspective, you just got to control the line of scrimmage, take care of business, and play clean football, and take care of this team and move on to week 2.
Yeah, exactly. You're the one that determines the winning and the losing of this game. I mean, as to how you play.
Right.
I mean, you dictate who wins and loses. But they do have a big-time tailback. They got some pretty good players, a linebacker, a couple guys in the secondary are really good, a couple wideouts that transferred in. Look, so, I mean, you have to respect them. You don't respect them, then you get yourself in trouble. Coming up, we will take a look at the Penn State offense. I'm trying to think, who's the quarterback on that offense? Pretty good player. We'll talk about that with more of Blue White Tailgate. All right, welcome back, and let's start with the Penn State offense. Look, the biggest change of all above offense, when they talk about there's no Saquon Barkley, it's actually Ricky Ronnie taking over as the coordinator. Jay, obviously the sample size isn't that big, but what do you think of his Fiesta Bowl performance?
I thought did a very nice job. In fact, there was more diversity in terms of motion and personnel groups than there had been all year, and I thought that was an interesting twist.
Yeah, 9 guys caught the ball in the Fiesta Bowl. It was really a great job moving the ball around in the Fiesta Bowl and that type of deal. And look, there's a lot of guys back. The defense is going to be a little bit different discussion. There's a lot of production lost, and certainly there's a lot of production lost on offense. But having a senior quarterback is a pretty good place to start when you're going to talk about an offensive discussion, especially the caliber of Trace.
Exactly, and that's a big part of this. And not only that, but Trace has a great handle on where everybody should be. He thinks like the coordinator does, and that does help when you have a quarterback, Jay, that thinks like your coordinator.
Well, the important thing is that position is there's going to be a young guy in there that forgets what he's supposed to do, and he's going to be the guy go, no, you got to do this, you got to block that guy, you got to run this route and go off that guy. So I think that's a huge help.
All right, Will Fry's very confident in what Ricky Ronnie can do with this offense.
I would say that Coach Ronnie's doing a great job of, building off of what Coach Moore had instilled here. We have a lot of the same philosophies, so I'm excited for Coach Ronnie and, him leading this offense. We're going to do great things.
And the big part of that, of course, is the guy that's behind Will Fries, and that's Trace McSorley. Look, he's received a lot of publicity. What I've liked about him is there's confidence but no arrogance.
Well, yeah, and one of the first questions that I asked Trace was about developing chemistry with the new receivers, because you do lose Mike Gesicki, Deshaun Hamilton, Saquon Barkley, a lot of the guys in crunch time that you started to rely on. And he didn't even waver. He said, it's no big deal. I'm not looking at one guy in particular. I'm going to go to the open guy. The other thing is he's a graduate student. He's spending a lot of time around the facility. He also wants to be part of developing the game plan and know it a little bit better as we go into here. And, oh, by the way, guys, he hasn't lost a game at home as a starter. Yep. That's a pretty important stat, to just win. No matter what you do, no matter what your stats are, it's just to win. And, Jay, we're hearing that name. We're hearing that whisper, Heisman around Trace McSorley. So what do you think? Is it real? I mean, does he have a possibility for that?
Everybody's got a possibility at this point. I mean, where did certain guys come from? There's been guys, Robert Griffin III came out of seemingly nowhere to win it for Baylor. So, look, I think the most important thing is he's not going to win it this week. He's not, I mean, at this point, you can lose it. You can't win it. But he's got every opportunity to win this thing because he's got games against Michigan State and Wisconsin and Ohio State and Michigan. But, he's got to win those games, no question.
Well, there's no doubt a trace of greatness, and you look at what he's been able to do over time in his career. Look at the numbers; they're just great. But as you mentioned, 9 different guys caught passes in the Fiesta Bowl. 6 of them are back with this team, and he's got some additions. Not only Juwan Johnson, but KJ Hamler emerging. I mean, that's a big guy to emerge.
And he's the guy. Juwan Johnson last year was the one they mentioned. They talked about in spring camp a lot. KJ Hamler everyone was raving about, and just his energy that he brings to practice, his quickness, his big play ability. So get to know the name, because we're going to hear it more and more as the season goes on.
And DeAndre Tompkins. Now, Mike Gesicki was a fabulous pass-catching tight end. Even he will tell you that blocking was a work in progress. So what about John Holland, Danny Dalton, Pat Freiermuth, Nick Bowers?
Well, I think the biggest thing for this pass game, if you look at this offense, is the two inside guys, receivers, their tight end and their slot receiver.
Yeah.
If those guys create matchup problems for guys in safety, then that changes the entire dynamic of how you play them defensively. And Gesicki did that, and Deshaun Hamilton did that for them last year, really did that. So how those guys emerge as receivers is going to have a big part of how well they throw the football this year.
And look, do not forget about the Lion, Tommy Stevens. I mean, you mentioned the tight ends, Jonathan Holland, Danny Dalton. Not sure how much they'll be asked to catch the ball, but Tommy Stevens is really, I mean, he's the kind of the outlier. What do you expect of him? If you've seen him, he is a tight end and a quarterback. I mean, 6'5", 240. This guy is huge. He's put on a lot of weight. Said he's put on 60 pounds since he got here to school. He can run, catch, throw. It's going to be really fascinating to see what Ricky Ronnie does with Tommy Stevens.
Part of the matchup will be that offensive line Will Fry's a part of against the Appalachian State defensive line.
You got some good players. There's definitely no step down for sure. Those guys on the defensive line, they're fast, they're twitchy, they're quick. They use their hands really well. So it'll be an exciting challenge for us.
Indeed, it will be an exciting challenge. Now let's get to our Blaze Alexander player to watch. Well, in our Blaze Alexander player to watch, we've talked about the quarterbacks and the wideouts. We haven't mentioned a running back yet. How about Miles Sanders?
Well, Miles Sanders, I just want to see him in extended action, right? I mean, everybody's talked about he's a good leader, he's really stepped up. I mean, a lot of respect for Saquon Barkley, but he knows it's his time and what he can do. He's got good size. Jay, you were talking about pass blocking, that, we expect good things from him in that situation as well. But it's really just about being the guy, right? How do you respond to third quarter, fourth quarter, those tough yards that you need to get to put a game away, that type of thing. I'm really just interested to see how Miles Sanders does, not only to start off a game if he starts fast, but to see how he finishes too.
No question. I think when you look back in the mid-'80s, Blair Thomas in '86 was the guy that came off the bench, made some good plays. And will Miles become like Blair Thomas, where he can carry the ball 25 times in a game and not put the ball on the ground and still have the endurance at the end of games to run through people, make things tough? And I think he will. I'm very excited to see him play.
But what did Blair Thomas do? Blair Thomas was behind DJ Dozier. He waited his turn.
Yep.
Okay? What did, we talked about the quarterbacks. That Michael Robinson waited his turn. That's where I look at Tommy Stevens and Miles Sanders in today's day and age. Nobody waits their turn. My respect for them, and it tells you a lot about them as people, but it tells you a lot about the Penn State football program and about James Franklin, that they wanted to, quote, wait their turn. And I think that says a lot about the two of them. I mean, in terms of their personality, because nobody waits their turn. There were 17 grad transfers in 2011. There were 200 last year. Okay. We'll take a look at the Penn State defense as we continue with Blue White Tailgate after this. All right, Penn State defense, and I think, Todd, you mentioned it earlier, we're going to talk about guys having to be replaced. This is where the side of the ball where it's happening.
Yeah, this is the side of the ball where the fans are going to be in the stands going, checking their program. What number was that? What's his name? What's going on? So, but it'll be fascinating. There's a lot of talent, and there's some guys that have gotten a lot of reps. So maybe you heard a whisper a little bit. You heard their name a little bit. They're going to be asked to step up and tackle, because they lost all their tacklers pretty much from last year's team.
All right, so let's take a look, an overview of the defense. Josh Sperber with a closer look.
A big story this offseason were the 5 player retirements for Penn State. Of those 5, 3 players played on defense for the Nittany Lions. Freshman cornerback Jordan Minor and defensive ends Torrance Brown and Ryan Buchholz. Buchholz was expected to start in 2017, and Torrance Brown had started 3 games last season before his year was cut short with a knee injury. These departures could allow for the emergence of some young stars as more pressure is put on this Penn State defense that finished in the top 20 in multiple defensive categories just a year ago. With 3 Nittany Lions on preseason award watch lists, these stars could be starting to emerge. Senior cornerback Amani Oruwariye was named to the Nagurski watch list. Senior linebacker Koa Farmer was named to the Butkus Award watch list for the nation's top linebacker, and Sharif Miller was named to the Bednarik Award watch list. Miller is someone I would especially like to keep my eye on this season. The third-team All-Big Ten defensive lineman in 2017 could be in line for a big year, as he's one of the more experienced players on the defensive line and could rise to the challenge of increased pressure being put on him by opposing offensive lines. With his strength and speed coming off the edge, Miller is a guy who could make a big impact for Penn State on defense in 2018. Coach James Franklin had a lot of positive things to say about his defensive line and his defense as a whole.
At defensive end, I think we're as good as we've been. Probably the best defensive end unit that I've had in my time as a head coach.
They say defense wins championships, and Penn State is looking to do that this year, starting in Game 1 against Appalachian State. Guys, back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks so much, Josh. Appreciate that. And yeah, holes to fill. Start defensive tackle. That's a big one right there, Todd.
Well, Kevin Givens and Robert Windsor are listed as the starters. They lost Ryan Buchholz, who decided to call it a career instead of battling with injuries anymore. So that's a significant loss for them. Look, Coach Franklin said it's kind of an unknown. He'd like for some guys to step up, but there's somewhat of a rotation there that hasn't separated themselves completely. They got a tough job. You know, they got to clog that middle, and there's some big offensive lines that are going to be coming at them this year, Jay.
And when you play with new linebackers, having a good up front guys, you know, those defensive tackles that can take two blockers and keep those guards or tackles from coming off double teams getting the second level, that's going to be important. So that's something to watch this week and as we go through the season.
All right, our Blaze Alexander defensive player to watch. This was actually my selection, so it is Yetur Gross-Matos at that defensive end spot. Yeah, there are a couple of obvious guys you could have picked, but maybe somebody I thought could maybe emerge, and as the season goes along, we talk more about it. He's got size, he's got length.
And when you look at the best pass defense is pass rush. Because if the ball doesn't get out, or if you get sacks, those things are happening, and that's going to be important. If Penn State can continue to get the same kind of pass rush and pressure on quarterbacks that they did last year.
I think Steve just selected him so he could say the name. He just likes to say Yetur Gross.
Notice I didn't follow up and repeat the name.
That's right. He just likes to say the name. But, you know,
that's okay, because I have Amani Oruwariye later.
That's right. So, but look, it's his second year. He's a starter as a sophomore on a defensive end unit that James Franklin said was his best in the 5 years that he's been here. So that speaks to how highly they regard his abilities. And Will Fry said Gross-Matos has been dominant in camp.
You know, Jan Johnson, Koa Farmer, and then you go Cam Brown, and Cam Brown has a chance to be really good here. But everybody's talking about the kids. It's Parsons, it's Lucetta. Everybody's talking about the kids.
Everybody loves the new guys.
Always.
You know, everybody goes from signing
this
day.
said by the new middle seat.
See, everybody loves the new guys. But that said, you know, everybody gets wrapped up in the recruiting and the hype and all the excitement. And, you know, at some point they're going to have to put on their pads and go play big boy football, and we'll find out soon enough. 7
true freshmen have green lights to pretty much play all year long, and 2 of them, Micah Parsons and Jesse Lucetta. So that goes to show what they think of these guys. And, you know, we were talking off camera a little bit about spring ball and the advantage that they get. And Steve, you were saying, you know, Micah Parsons in April, very different than what he is right now. That
secondary is going to get tested. A couple of transfers from Kansas State now on that Appalachian State roster. It's something that Amani Oruwariye is looking forward to.
They all, as a group in general, are fast, sub 4 or 5 guys. So we know what we're getting ourselves into, but that definitely will help. That helps them try to stretch the field and with jet sweeps and all these different kinds of things they can do with those guys.
And there's no doubt there's a variety that it brings to the table, but that secondary for Penn State is interesting. They lost all the senior starters. They've all played. Yeah. This is a big difference when you played a lot of people, and not only that, they weren't in mop-up roles.
No, and John Reed coming back obviously is a big. That's like picking up a starting corner from a great football team in free agency. So they've really got 3 corners that have started a lot, played a lot of football, and that also helps in your nickel packages. I think that's going to be a strength of the defense, is really the secondary.
A lot of reps for these guys, but Garrett Taylor and Nick Scott do get the start at safety. So that's, we're going to see what their instincts are like, whether they play the field and can break closing speed, all that type of stuff is what you need to look out for in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, Nick Scott's one of those guys who also played a lot of football. Now, Garrett Taylor, you're right, Todd, not quite the same, because he hasn't played as often as everybody else has. All right, coming up, we take a trip into the film room. This will be interesting because we've talked a lot of movies during the breaks.
We are back on the blue-white tailgate, specifically into the film room. It's brought to you by Beer, Belly's, Beverage. And no, we're not watching movies, although we've made some good film references as we've been talking about stuff. We're talking about App State, the 2018 version, as we get going with the lid lifter of the season, right, in Beaver Stadium against the Nittany Lions. So what impresses you? What stands out about the Mountaineers, Chad?
Well, let's start with their defense. I mean, you look at they got 5 defensive starters back, and they've got 3 guys that have started several games. So you're really looking at about 8 guys that have played a lot. And you look at what they did last year. Let's take a look at their numbers. 137 yards a game rushing, good number. 205, 343 pass total defense, plus 12 turnover margin. And look at Georgia, a team that was in the national championship game last year that they played at Georgia, and they held them to similar numbers. So this is a defense that's really got the ability to make things difficult on Saturday afternoon. Let's talk about how they do it. Now, just as you're watching the game Saturday, one of the things you're going to look for is what are the safeties doing? And when you look at it, they're very aggressive. They're a 2-safety defense. They're very aggressive on run support. They do a lot of things with they have an outside linebacker. They're a 3-4, 2 outside linebackers. One is predominantly a rush guy. One's predominantly a drop guy. But this allows them to be very multiple with their blitzes and what they do. Let's take a look at this film here, and you'll see these safeties are downhill. You see the one at the top is coming downhill right now, trying to get involved in making tackles. Now, the other thing they do that's unusual for most teams is when you're in 3 wide-out sets, they're going to keep their linebackers in the game. Now, you get the 3rd and long, they'll go to a nickel, but they've kept linebackers in. That's going to create matchups here for Penn State. We talked about the inside receivers for Penn State having to make an impact in this game because of the corners. These are matchups you're going to see. They like the blitz. They'll actually drop these guys out, and you'll see on the film. So take a look here on the film. You'll see that's a linebacker on a wide receiver. You got another linebacker. Safety comes down to get matched up on that guy. So those inside receivers are going to be important. Now, as you watch the game, if you're sitting in the stands or you're sitting at home watching the game, take a look at the safeties. They're going to tip off some of the blitz stuff. They start 2 safeties high. You'll see him start to come down. And when a safety comes down, there's usually a reason because he's making up for somebody blitzing. That now, a guy that usually is a rush guy is going to drop, and they make good adjustments. But again, these are good matchups for Penn State in the pass game if they've got to drop in. So take a look at the film there, and we'll see how that guy, now he's dropping. He's one-on-one with the receiver. You got to take advantage of those things. Now, they are very, very good getting the quarterback. We talked about 38 sacks last year. That's going to be a problem. That's something Penn State's got to take care of on Saturday. Now, what is there? Because of the aggressive run support, because the safeties getting involved in the run game and trying to stop the run, the play-action game is here. Here you're going to see a good, hard play-action fake. You're going to see the safety come downhill, and you're going to see the Idaho receiver get in behind him and make a play and make him pay for it. So take a look at this. Now, this is something that Trace McSorley's made a lot of hay on the last couple of years. Expect to see some of these play-action passes over the top on these guys come Saturday.
The way you combat some of this stuff is to have a quick decision maker and an elusive quarterback. Oh, I think those are a couple of traits that Trace McSorley has. So
Penn State's got that box checked.
Right, check that box. Okay, let's move to the offensive side of the football. What kind of things do they present to a defense, to the Mountaineers?
I think the most important thing for Penn State is going to be this. They've got to take away the run game, and they've got to take away the short passing game. Because one of the things that Appalachian State has not done, they're not a big downfield pass team. They get the ball in their receivers and make people miss and make big plays. So take a look here. One of the things they're going to do with their quarterback run game to get the run game going is a zone read. And they're going to read this defensive end. They run the zone read. The quarterback's going to pull it or keep it. You've seen Trace McSorley do this a bunch. Let's take a look at the film here and see how they do that. The defensive end closes. And again, he doesn't close fast enough. They give it to him. And now this is their tailback. He's the guy at 25 you want to watch for on Saturday. He makes a lot of plays, a lot of good things happen. One of the things that they do that's different than things Penn State have seen is a triple option. And triple option takes some getting used to. Here they're going to run this guy in motion to become the pitch back. Here their tailback's a dive back. They're going to read the defensive end first, And if the defensive end takes away the run, quarterback will pull it and go to option 2, and he'll read off of this guy. If this guy takes the quarterback, he pitches. If he takes the pitch, the quarterback will keep it, and you'll see how that works. So take a look at it on film. The important thing is, this is assignment defense. Even though you want to run the football, if I've got the pitch, I've got to stay taking the pitch, and if I've got the quarterback, I've got to take the quarterback. Now, off of that, again, we talked a little bit about their short pass game, things they want to do. They'll do a screen here to the wideout off the run game. So they're going to fake the run. If this guy takes the run, he's going to throw it out at the receiver. The thing they do also is they bring an offensive lineman out to block the corner. If there's one thing a corner does not want to see, it's an offensive lineman running downhill, and you'll see how effective this is. Take a look at it. Defensive end closes, he pulls it, throws it out at the receiver. The corner gets hit by that offensive tackle, really wants no part of it. Now, the last thing that they're going to have to take care of is the quarterback run game. Again, with a new quarterback, the quarterback run game is something they lean on to get him comfortable, get him used to competing in a tough environment like this. Here's a 4th down and 6, and they get a quarterback draw. So take a look. They're going to run all these guys out of here. You take a look at the film. The quarterback's going to keep it, and the tailback's going to come up and lead in the linebacker. And now they convert a key 4th down in a game where they came back and won.
The keys: stop the run, pressure the new quarterback, and take away the easy throws. As we take a look at those 3 keys, there they are right there.
No question about it. And that's going to come down to these new linebackers that Penn State has. So that's going to be the matchup really to watch, is how those linebackers handle the run game, the screen game, and all that kind of stuff with the quarterback run game.
It's no cupcake at Beaver Stadium. This is a legit team. All right, more Blue White Tailgate after this.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate. Now we have Shop Talk, presented by Ace Hardware of State College. And today we'll be talking shop with Adam Witten, the play-by-play man for the Appalachian State Mountaineers. Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Josh. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for coming on. So first off, Adam, talk to me about your road up to the App State booth.
I went to school at App State, and I graduated in 2004, which was right before the start of the climb to kind of where things are today. So I was working there in some capacity when I was a student, left in 2005. Came to take a broadcasting job here at what was then ISP, International Sports Properties, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Worked there ever since, and then 2 years ago got the opportunity to come back to my alma mater and do the football play-by-play. And it was a no-brainer, living the dream of calling games for my alma mater. And we've had a really fun time getting to go to some really cool places to start the season, and this one's going to be no different.
Well, as someone else who's called games for his alma mater, it's definitely one of the best feelings. So about your experience with App State football, one big time obviously was that 2007 upset that you mentioned. Talk to me how that felt to experience that as not just a student of App State, but also someone who worked for the team around that time.
It is a banner moment in our program's history, no doubt about it. I don't have the best story for that, unfortunately, because at the time I was working. I was not affiliated with the school or the program at that time, but I was working another broadcast, and I was working that day on Saturday doing a game at the exact same time that one was going on. And so I'm in a studio, and at that, if you recall, that was the first game broadcast on the Big Ten Network. Well, in North Carolina, our cable package did not have Big Ten Network. And this was also before Twitter was around. And so you can imagine the options being somewhat limited to be able to follow that game. It was not exactly the easiest way for me to experience it, the best way to experience it. But gosh, I was around so many college football fans who were all just coming up to me and congratulating me and saying, wow, what an awesome moment. But, I wish I could say I was there in the big house for it, but still something I was able to celebrate.
Oh, absolutely. A game of that magnitude, not something you ever stop celebrating. So you were also with the team while it was in the FCS, like it was in 2007, but you also were there working for the team in some capacity when they made the move to the FBS. Could you describe the differences in those two divisions of Division I football?
We're really starting to see it at this point in time in App State's history and coming up to the present day, because back in the days of the FCS, there's the obvious scholarship difference. You're looking at about 20 a difference of 20 scholarships between the two levels. And so, there are certain disadvantages that teams have at that level when they're playing teams from the FBS. App was still getting great talent. They still were developing their talent at a high level, and they had guys who could have competed at any level of football. And I think they're starting to see that's the reason they're having more and more success, because the level of talent, the measurables of the players that come into the program now at an FBS level, and an FBS program that's having success in the Sun Belt Conference, winning bowl games, winning conference championships, competing against some of the best teams in the country. We're seeing that start to play out now, and so, that they hope it pays off in being able to be more competitive in games like the one we have coming up.
Well, they certainly have been competitive at every level. And what is it about this App State team, the program, that makes them so hard to play, even when they're playing some of the teams like Georgia, Wake Forest, and now Penn State?
Well, I think top to bottom, I mean, these are, you got to understand, like, even though this is an FBS program, these are all guys that all feel like they were overlooked at some point in their career. I mean, you look at someone who's going to be in the backfield for the Mountaineers, maybe their biggest star on offense is Jalen Moore, the running back. He wears number 25. He's from Shelby, North Carolina, and he's not very tall, and he wasn't very big when he came into the program. But the way that he's developed into a guy who's kind of an NFL caliber back. I mean, he's that strong, he's that fast. And so, but he's the kind of guy that he feels overlooked. He felt like he was disrespected at one point in his career. And so he plays with that chip. He plays with that kind of riding into his emotions when he goes and he plays a game. So you have a roster full of guys like that. When they play against a school like a Georgia or a Tennessee or a Penn State, or even last year against a Wake Forest, which is only 90 minutes away from Boone, North Carolina, they're playing against programs that didn't want them to come play there. That's the way they kind of look at it.
Well, it's certainly a good mentality to have, and especially going into a game like this. Adam, thank you so much for your time. We'll be right back with some more Blue White Tailgate, where we'll have a more in-depth discussion of this Appalachian State team.
Time now to dive into Appalachian State, which is a good program. I mean, there's no question about that. It's one of those, Jason, why don't you schedule this game? Yeah. They're a good program. Are they awesome and incredible? No, but they're good.
No, but your fans go, who? And they expect you to win 47 to 3 or whatever it is. And if you don't, I mean, these are games where you come out and you're a little off and your players aren't up for an opener like they would be for a Michigan or something. And if you're a little off and you make a mistake or two, you're in for a long game like Tennessee was 2 years ago.
But you know, these are the realities of the 9-game schedule for the Big Ten, right? I mean, you've got to schedule someone with a name. Pitt's a good rivalry that you're going to their place, the Heinz Field, and then you got to have a team that's got a little bit of legitimacy to them. Appalachian State has some legitimacy to them. They're a winning program, especially lately. I don't know if you know that when you do schedule them, where they're going to be on that spectrum. But look, you can scoff at the name.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But they're bringing some players to Beaver Stadium. And Steve, you mentioned it, Penn State's play will determine the result of this more so than the opponent. Yeah. But Jay, as you said, if you don't play clean, you
miss a tackle, 7 points. Yeah. And next thing you know, it snowballs. And look, ask Michigan in 2007. I mean, it's just they paid him a big bunch of money to come in and beat them.
Well, Scott Satterfield's a good coach. I mean, he's an alum. Look what he's done over the course of his career. He's done a terrific job. By the way, Greg Gasparotto, you and I watched him grow up. Yes. He's on that staff as their safeties coach. All right, Nick's son, the late Nick Gasparotto.
Look at the bowl game. They play the MAC champion. The MAC is a legitimate conference. They beat him 34-0. It wasn't even a game.
And how much prep time do you get for this? I mean, this isn't week 2, week 3 for them. This is week number 1, the big one. They've been planning for it for a long, long time.
And they have very little tape on Zach Thomas, who's going to be the starting quarterback, but they have a lot on Jalen Moore. And when James Franklin looks at the Jalen Moore video, he's impressed.
I think he's a home run hitter. He's a home run hitter. There's games where he has been highly, highly productive. There's games where he hasn't been, but what you're dealing with him is if there's a hole, he has the ability to take it the distance.
No question about that. You'll see him get 2, 3, 4 yards, 2, 3, 4 yards, up 45.
Yep.
There he goes. Right. That's the guy you worry about, the one that can take it all the way through.
Yeah, and the key word in that sentence was if. right? If there's a hole
Yes.
there. So the defensive tackles, defensive ends, everybody's got to play assignment football. You got some new linebackers. You know, in some situations, Jan Johnson taking over the middle. Got to be in the right spot, got to get the right reads, and so that's the big if part of it.
So now here's the next part. You want to talk about established numbers. You look at the secondary, Jay. They have guys with established numbers in that secondary.
Yeah, you're looking at 2 first-team all-conference guys in the Sun Belt Conference on the edge. And, you know, the one thing I think that, and we'll talk, you know, I haven't talked about this a little earlier in the show, was, you know, the height advantage for a guy like Juwan Johnson is going to be something that's significant. And can Penn State, with those slot guys that we talked about, can they get those guys on safeties and beat those guys one-on-one? Because I think that's where they're going to have to make some hay.
Yeah, the new defensive coordinator was the secondaries coach.
Yes.
And he got promoted because of his work with the secondary. I mean, that's how these things happen, right? You do a good job, you get a promotion. But they're short. They are shorter corners, they are shorter secondary, and Penn State will have that size advantage. And Trace McSorley will be able to work it around.
Yeah.
So how many guys will they be able to cover? Penn State's got a lot of weapons.
Yeah, Nate Woody moved on to Georgia Tech. Brian Brown takes over as the coordinator. And the 2 guys we're talking about are Ty Hayes, who's really, really good, and then Clifton Duck has had a really nice career. He's 11 career interceptions. Anthony Flory is a linebacker that brings with him a lot of respect to the table for James Franklin.
And then Anthony Flory really reminds us in a lot of ways of Brandon Bell. Seems to have a lot of savvy to him. Got a really good feel for the game, and is very, very productive. Was the MVP of the Dollar General Bowl last year.
And not only that, last year, this is a team that they attacked the quarterback. They had 38 sacks last year, but it's an all-new rebuilt defensive front. So, again, another journey into the unknown.
Oh, no question. And you got to look at it and say, if they're not successful getting it with 4 guys, they'll start bringing 5 and 6, and and haven't looked at them. They've got some pretty complex blitz packages that they're going to run at people.
And the 2 things I look at for that, this is a real good test for what's supposed to be a more experienced, improved offensive line, right? Do they handle that? And also Trace McSorley. We haven't talked about Trace's running ability, which has gotten better every single year. His decision-making is always fantastic, and he drives defenses nuts with his elusiveness as he continues to look downfield with his eyes.
See, you have to have a feel for the game. Michael Robinson, a great feel for the game. Darryl Clark did. Trace McSorley has a great feel for the game. You can analytics everything out there. You know what? If you have feel for something, you're going to be good at it. He does.
No
That's
question
Trace
about it.
McSorley. All right, coming up, the much anticipated, not just by the crew, but also by the audience, the G Block is coming up next on the Blue White Tailgate.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate. And guys, you know, the camp, kids get a little bored, right? They need to do some off football activities, and they went paintballing. Penn State went paintballing in the off season, okay? And it's one of the most famous storylines in television history way back in 1980. Who shot J.R. Ewing? Well, the television show Dallas, decades ago. And then, of course, The Simpsons. Who shot Montgomery Burns? Who shot Mr. Burns? Well, a paintball assault on James Franklin occurred, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. So, who shot JF?
That's one. This is the best one. You guys, can you see that one?
As we saw James's bruises, who shot JF? Who shot Coach?
I think once people figured out who it was, and he got shot the first time, I think it was like all hands on deck. Everybody forget what they're doing, and they went after Coach.
Good answer. Did you notice how he dodges the initial question? We try again with Juwan Johnson. I don't know if he bruises easily, but it looks like he was pelted. Yeah. Who shot JF?
There were several people. I mean, you really couldn't tell because there were a lot of masks on, but we had a paintball games a couple days ago, and he got shut up pretty well because he likes getting on people's nerves, I guess you would say. So they try to get revenge.
We discover the motive, revenge. Still looking for the culprits.
Well, it wasn't me. Well, I was on the hill, actually. My team wasn't playing against his. I can't remember who shot him, but there was more than one culprit in that, and he got lit up pretty good.
Connor McGovern also witnesses the carnage from the hill. He gives us a real break in the case.
I was not part of that match at all. Anyone on Team 3 would know what happened.
Jackpot, Team 3. The squads are divvied up alphabetically. The later letters make up Team 3. Next interview, Garrett Taylor. That's Taylor with a T. Were you on Team 3?
I was on Team 3.
Ah, we found someone on Team 3. I haven't had anybody point to anybody specific, but they have pointed the finger at Team 3 of who shot Coach Franklin. Your response to that?
Team 3 will take responsibility for that. I think we were very proud. You don't get too many opportunities to shoot your head coach, so we all made sure we knew where he was, and at the end of the game when we had the chance, we took advantage of it. So.
Garrett, finally, someone takes responsibility and accountability. I'm proud of you, man. That's great.
No names individually, though.
Yeah.
It was a team effort for sure.
Ooh.
A team effort. A team effort. And Coach said he was all the way on the far side, got hit, and it basically just walked across and they all just hammered him.
I was on the hill.
Yeah.
The grassy knoll.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
up. I was
Who
on
was
the
in
hill.
the school book depository? That's what I want to know.
No, I was on the hill. So I mean,
Sure you were.
Yeah.
Jones with a J.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
All
That's
right.
in the middle.
Yeah.
All right. The good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, that's coming up. Well, we'll go with the angelic one. Go ahead, Todd.
Oh, I get to go. Okay, well, the good. How about the really, really good, as in Alabama's quarterback situation? Yeah. I mean, they get one guy that takes them to the national championship. At halftime, they change, and that guy wins the national championship, and so now they're co-number ones. Tua Tagovailoa is probably going to end up being the guy because he can throw it so well, but it's nice to know you got Jalen Hurts on the roster as well.
That's not bad. Not bad. I got the bad, and the bad is the Big Ten's 9-game conference schedule. I look around, I see some really big neutral site games being played this weekend, and what is common about all of them? No Big Ten teams are involved in them, and that's partly because of that 9-game schedule. They got to go back to 8, and let's get to some of these games to start the season.
Yeah, ugly's pretty obvious because obviously Ohio State and Maryland and how they dominated the headlines in the month of August. It still hasn't all been resolved yet. We're still waiting. Maryland's report comes out September 15th, as a matter of fact. So that would be the ugly for college football. All right, time for picks now. Here's the moment you've all been waiting for, especially in this new era put together by the Supreme Court. Todd, you get to go first. You've got the first game up, LSU Miami.
Yeah, it's one of those big games that the Big Ten's not part of, LSU and Miami. But a former Big Ten player, Joe Barrow, has transferred from Ohio State to be the quarterback for LSU. I don't think it's a successful debut. I give it to the Hurricanes.
I got Ohio State, Michigan and Notre Dame. Now, this is not a neutral site game. It's a big game. It's a great game. I like seeing back on the schedule for these two teams because they're 140 miles away from each other as the crow flies. Shea Patterson is the question mark for Michigan. Michigan will go as far as they take him. If he plays like he has in the 10 games previously, I think they beat Notre Dame pretty handily.
All right, I've got Atlanta. I've got Washington and Auburn. Auburn has a 2-hour bus trip. Washington has to fly cross country. All right, I'm not crazy about either team. I'm going to go with Auburn to win the game. All right, so Josh, you end up with Virginia Tech, Florida State on Monday night.
So for Florida State, Virginia Tech, Florida State coming off of a down year in 2017, and a big thing for them, getting DeAndre Francois back. I think the 2016 ACC Rookie of the Year is going to have a big game and lead the Seminoles to an opening night win.
All right, Josh, okay, Aaron's keys to the game. Todd, you go first.
Well, you know, variety is the spice of life, and in this case, it is the key to victory for college football. They spread it out to 9 different receivers in the Fiesta. I think if Trace McSorley spreads the wealth, spreads out the Mountaineers, they're going to win this game.
Play with the lead, all right? Dictate exactly who's in charge of the game. You do that, you win the game.
I think Penn State handling the run game for Appalachian State, put the pressure on their new quarterback in a place, an environment he hasn't been in before, and I think that's the key.
All right, now pull back and take a look at our set. Take a look at the set, the beautiful pictures we have in this set. We want to thank Steve Tressler and our good friends at J. Rue Printing because of all the photos that you see. You saw Saquon Barkley behind me, the lion statue, obviously, and Jay is just enthralled by having a picture with fireworks in back of him. But Steve Tressler and J. Rue Printing, thank you so much for that. We gratefully appreciate it. For Josh, for Todd, Jay, I'm Steve Jones. Thanks for joining us on the Blue White Tailgate, and enjoy the game Saturday at 3:30 at Beaver Stadium.
Why 3:30?